Now, welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
We are so excited that you are here for the How to Say No webinar. And we know that your time is valuable and that you've chosen to spend the next hour or so with us. So thank you for that. Teresa and I have been living and breathing and eating boundaries for months now, but with you, whoever has been with us through the last few programs, that's been the last few weeks, all in preparation for our new and improved course, Boundaries for Beautiful Relationships. And some of you have already joined the course, and we're so excited and welcome all of you who have joined. So let's just recap where we've been. We started with a 5-day challenge, and many people in that challenge experienced major shift in boosting boundaries. Boosting those boundaries. So in the chat room, if you were in that challenge, let us know and tell us one of your takeaways. We'd love to hear. And while you're doing that, I want to talk about the masterclass that we had on the 5 boundary mistakes and how to turn them around and live your most boundaried, best, incredible life. So if you were there, let us know in the chat room. And now, drum roll please, we're here at the final masterclass, How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty, Mean, or Selfish. And as always, we really want to hear from you. We've said it like 3 times already. So we really want you to chat in the chat area throughout the class. And at the end, we may be unmuting a few of you to take your questions. So get ready to learn about how to improve your ability to say N-O.
You have all heard it. No is a complete sentence, but why on earth do we not practice that? I want to give you just a little bit of background on Sandy and I. And if you've been with us for any of the master classes or the webinars, or if you've done our coursework before, you're familiar with us. My name is Teresa Byrne. I'm a 4th degree black belt. I'm a master instructor. I was actually the first female to earn her master instructor ranking in my martial arts system. And I've been teaching self-defense for 20 some years. And boundaries are a huge part of self-defense. Sandy is an empowerment coach, and she is really helping to teach women how to stand up for their value at work, in life, in love, in all of their relationships. And she's been running Last First Date for gobs of years. I don't even know how many.
11.
11 years. And she's also just started a new program or a new company called Women of Value. And it's really all about helping people tap into that value so that you can have lives that you love. The backstory on us is that we are not just making this stuff up. There are so few resources out there. There are very few great boundary books or boundary resources. And everything that we're giving you has been culled. This knowledge base has been culled from years and years of practice, of training, and of working with thousands of clients. I've worked with over 20,000 people directly and thousands on boundaries alone. Sandy and I come at this information with so many pieces of wisdom that have helped our clients transform their lives that is really built to do the same thing for you. But we really try to make it, instead of being very coursework oriented and telling you exactly what to do, that's not our style. We both tend to be very down to earth, lighthearted. In fact, we're going to share our boundary lessons, some of our own boundary mistakes and what we've learned from those with you, because that's the best way for us to learn. And we're going to offer this practice so that you have an intelligence about boundaries. Awareness is the key. And it's not like you can just go, oh, a boundary is a limit that I set, and suddenly you start setting them. We're really interested in individualized attention. And that's one reason Sandy already asked you 3 times if you're interested. Please talk to us in the chat, because a lot of our work is done one-on-one or one-to-many, and we really want to hear from you so that we can learn what's going on for you and because we all learn from each other. So someone may have a comment and we're all going to learn from that. But we really do care. We really do care about you having boundary relationships and having that, oh my gosh, I wish I had a better, we need a better word for it, but that peace of mind, that ease that comes from knowing yourself and knowing that the people in your life love and respect you, and you can feel it.
That is That is the truth, girl. And
True
we
dat.
do have people chatting in the chat room, so I'm going to go read what is said so far. Thank you for Nahama, who said, I was in the 5-day challenge. I like the point about how to ask for what matters to you. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be a serious statement, can be done with humor. And
Oh,
thank you
I
for sharing that.
like her.
Right. That's just what Teresa said.
Love humor.
So we like to be lighthearted about a serious topic because this is how we learn. This is how we are, and this is how we learn and grow. And Sally, hi Sally.
Hi,
Sally was
Sally.
at the challenge and masterclass, and Sally learned, to my chagrin, that I do not have good boundaries, and that has caused a lot of trouble for me with family and intimate relationships. And I'm signed up for the program because I truly believe that having clear boundaries will change my life. It will.
Yes.
It's hard to speak up to say what I need to say without feeling that I'm hurting someone. Oh, Sally, we love what you said, and we're so happy that you're in the course. And this is the change. This is what will change when you stop focusing so much about hurting somebody else and you start focusing on how to set those boundaries in a kind way. And we're going to talk a little bit about, like, why do we struggle with this so much? And most of us really struggle. We struggled. Teresa and I struggled. So we want you to know that you have a right to set boundaries and say no. It's a human right. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People think they're there to punish somebody, to set up a big stop sign, a wall.
Mm.
But that's not what a boundary really is. A boundary is there to protect our energy, our health, our emotional safety, and all of our relationships. Because when you don't say no, and when you don't speak the truth about how you feel to protect what's important to you, you can end up feeling depleted, angry, and resentful. Who here, right in the chat room, if any of that is true for you? Who here has felt that they haven't spoken up for what's true for them, and that has left them feeling angry, resentful, any of those feelings?
Or you've waited too long to set a boundary and gotten to the point where you're pushed to anger, and if you would have said it earlier, it wouldn't have been that bad.
Oh, so true. I mean, just tonight, I'll share a really quick one.
Please.
I know we're going to keep doing this all night. My son had a really tough day at work, and we were sitting down to dinner, and I knew he had it. And I had a tough day at work too, but I was already processed at dinner. And at one point he snapped at me, and I said, I I set a boundary with him, and I said, I know you're really not in a great mood, but I don't appreciate you took it out on me. Why don't you go to your room and go spend some time by yourself? Like, you don't get points for hanging out with me when you're in a bad mood. And so he apologized immediately. We have that kind of relationship where we can just speak our truth. And it was washed over in seconds. So it doesn't have to be like, why did he do that to me? Why did you, right?
Oh my gosh, I remember taking myself into timeout. And I do this if I'm in a relationship, or even if I'm just having a really bad day and I'm grumpy. I'm like, you're going in timeout so you do not bring this energy to anyone else. So I'm going to bring up what is a boundary. And it really is that energy. It's that energy that's around you. It's that energy that surrounds you. And you can fill that energy bubble up with what feels good. Things like how to take care of yourself, what kinds of foods to eat, what you want your environment to look like. And also, it's that kind of defining line between you and someone else. So much of the literature is written in a way that makes boundaries seem bad and wrong, as if, oh, how dare you cross a boundary? But the truth of the matter is this: we are built, we are created to have our own energy, and we are going to push up against each other. That's how we know where someone else begins and where we end. They begin, we end, we begin, they end. That's where we know the lines are. And sometimes if you trust someone, you can move further. You allow them in closer, or you're more vulnerable with them. But if you don't trust someone, you don't know them very well, you might have a bigger or thicker boundary. And that's okay. This webinar is about how to say no without feeling mean or guilty or selfish. And that's what happens. It's almost like these are the imaginary lines around us, but sometimes we'll feel guilty for having those imaginary lines around us when truly they're just imaginary lines around us. There's nothing to feel guilty about. But what can happen is by telling people what works for you and what doesn't work for you, it allows them to get to know the real you, the you that is sacred, the you that cares about this more than that, the you that enjoys this and not that. One of our jokes, one of my little sayings is boundaries are what you will and what you won't and what you do and what you don't. And it's what you want more of. I love it when Sandy dances. What you want more of or what you want less of. And the more honest you are about it, it'll help people know what works for you. And it'll help people know who you really are. The other thing about that is that it helps you to create a confidence. So when you set a boundary and someone respects it, it's almost like them saying they respect you. There's an old saying that we teach people how to treat us. And I also want to say that sometimes we are the ones that get called boundaries on. We don't often look at it from that point of view, right? We are thinking we're the hero in our story. We're the ones that always have to set boundaries. I was recently doing a bunch of talks, and one of the women said, "Oh my God, I just realized my partner keeps asking me and using these words. It would make me feel much better if you cleaned up the kitchen." And she said, "I'm ignoring it. And I just in this moment realized that I am making my desire to have a messy kitchen more important than what my partner wants." And I never realized it until right now. So sometimes it's the boundaries that people will also draw with us. And it's how to have the space for that.
Yep, and Teresa and I have shared many examples in the past few master classes and in the 5-day challenge of when we needed to be called out. So we are totally happy to share our mistakes because we have grown so much through this work. And it's not like you set it and forget it. Boundaries.
It's not one and done.
It's not one and done. It's a constant, you're constantly being reminded of your boundaries. And we'll get into that more a little bit later. So why do we struggle to say no so much? And I think that one of the number one reasons is the disease to please.
Oof.
Who here has the disease to please? I had it for sure, and it's a constant check. And let us know in the chat room if you just want to make people happy. There is a total cultural bias for girls to be nice, sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what girls are made of. And it's really set us up for codependency and not having our needs met because we're always trying to please others. And many of us grew up in families where our needs were not met. So we got attention by pleasing. If I get good grades. I had a client whose mother was ill when she was growing up, and the way that she had to behave was to be quiet. And she had a big voice, like Teresa. She had a lot of energy. But imagine Teresa having to quiet that voice all the time because you can't make noise around mom. And so this woman grew up muting herself and married a man who was a narcissist who was happy to keep her muted. And it took her a lifetime until she was about in her 50s to start working with me personally and work on those boundaries. And she also took the boundaries course to work on them further. So I had a client also who grew up in a messy home. Her parents were alcoholics, codependents. They were so neglectful of her and the home that when they would go out, she was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, and she would clean the house just to get attention. And every once in a while, her mom would go, "Oh, nice job." That was it. And so she spent the rest of her life trying to please to get the attention that she didn't get as a kid. So let us know. I mean, this happens to so many of us. Let us know in the chat room if you can relate to anything that I just shared.
I wonder if the disease to please is also where we find clients that will chase after crumbs. They will chase after crumbs of affection, pieces of affection, tiny bits of affection.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one that I found to be very interesting in how we don't set our no's or say our no's is scarcity. We worry that if we say no to an offer, that the offer won't come again. If someone invites us somewhere, or if a friend wants to go meet for coffee or a drink and we say no, or if there's work someone dumping a lot of work on your desk, if you don't do all that work, that you're not going to get, it's not going to come again. It's like this whole scarcity thing that this is it. This is all there is. I've had clients before who had to say yes to every date. So oh my God, I remember when, what is it called? Online dating started happening. And one of my clients was like, so every time someone winks at me, am I supposed to wink back? I'm thinking, you're going to drive yourself insane.
Yeah,
like,
your eye's going to really hurt too.
Imagine winking at all those people in real life. Would you do that? And she said, but isn't it rude if I don't wink back? And so there's this whole idea that, oh my God, if I don't, then they're not going to come back. One of my personal boundaries is that people used to ask me to teach self-defense. Every women's group, all these different opportunities would come to me. Hey, you're so good at this. Can you come teach self-defense? Can you do a keynote here? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I always felt like it was my job to say yes. And it's part of my mission, right? To help these people with their boundaries and learning safety. But here's the real deal, folks. I was exhausted. I ended up teaching 80 hours a week, owning and running my own studio. Plus, every Tom, Dick, and Harry that came and wanted me to teach a self-defense class, I felt like I had to say yes until I figured out how to say no without feeling mean, guilty, or selfish.
80 hours, Teresa. That is, I'm exhausted. I had a client who got mad that I had specific hours that I coach, which were created with these personal boundaries, because I knew I could only work certain days of the week as a private coach because I had other things like classes and other things like that. And she wanted me to coach her early in the morning before her work started or on the weekend. And neither one of those worked for me. And we were able to work it out, but it's like in the old days, I would have probably said, sure, I'll coach at 7 a.m. No.
Oh,
So
no.
we have a comment here. Teresa, do you want to read Betty's comment?
I do. I realize one of my biggest boundary issues is with my sister. Oh, it's always family, Betty.
Oh, yeah.
I asked her years ago, before our mother passed away, saying, I think it would be a good idea if we went to therapy together. She said it wasn't a priority, which I found insulting. It's 14 years now since our mother passed away, and our relationship is essentially non-existent because I have changed 100% and had to essentially let this toxic relationship go. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's difficult when the people in our lives don't want what we want. Anything to add about that, Sandy?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's painful, and sometimes the only recourse is to let go. Other times, when we make the changes, somebody else changes too. And so just want to let people know that sometimes, because it is a dance, relationships are a dance. And when we change the dance steps, either the person's going to leave the dance floor or change the dance steps with us. So, and I just did a podcast about this, about conflict in relationships. And often it doesn't take two people, it takes one person setting boundaries in a relationship. And I've done that in many of mine. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in the end, boundaries are for us to keep ourselves safe and sane.
Amen, sister.
Thank you for sharing that, Betty. So boundaries, saying no also creates limits that we are afraid of. We're afraid of missing out. We're afraid of disappointing somebody. Let me know in the comments if that's ever been true to you. So you said no because you don't want to disappoint someone. And an example in my life, it was I used to say yes to every wedding invitation, even if I didn't really want to go because I didn't want to disappoint my friend. And now what I do is I take a step back and I picture myself at that event. And do I really want to be there? And this is something we teach in the course, is how to really visualize what the situation is going to be. When you can picture it in your mind, you can decide, is this really a good idea? Because we make so many decisions out of impulse sometimes. And we haven't really worked through, like, what would it actually be like if I was there?
We make things up. Imagine that, folks. We make things up. Anyone else in here ever made things up or had boundary conversations that went much better than you expected in your head?
Oh, yeah.
Another reason that we don't say no is fear. And I want to talk about fear for a second. I do a lot of fear workshops, breaking up with fear and how fear affects us. And there really basically boils down to two fears. One is certain death. So that's the things that could actually kill us, like falling, snakes, and spiders. There's a reason we're afraid of snakes and spiders, folks. The other fear is tribal, and that means getting kicked out of the tribe. We are raised to be in a collective group, and the fear of being ostracized is literally inherent in ourselves because we need each other to survive, or we have for many, many millennia. We don't want to get kicked out of that group. And so if you say no to someone, you might get kicked out. You might not be invited back. You might not be asked back. I have a girlfriend, and our running joke was, we were in college and she had to go to every single event. And I asked her, why do you have to say yes to everything that happens? And she's like, but what if something happens and I don't know about it? And I'm thinking, I don't always want to know about the things that happen at all of these different events. She would literally try to hit 4 or 5 different events in an evening. And that just sounded exhausting. I will take one and leave me there happy. Another example of this, I'm embarrassed to say it. I used to have a fear of leaving a conversation. So I do a lot of keynote speaking, and I do a lot of big talks on stages, and I'll have people approach me after the talk, and they're sharing something very vulnerable and very interesting. And I have like 4 other people that are standing there to talk to, and I am not always that adept at being able to leave that conversation, especially if someone is sharing something from the depths of their soul. I've gotten much better at it, but this is definitely what we would call our boundary kryptonite, which we will also cover in the course. When someone's very vulnerable with me, I have a very difficult time setting a boundary, and I've gotten better at it, but oh my God, leaving a conversation. How long would you stay stuck in a corner with someone telling you their life story? I used to spend way too long doing that.
And I did too. And I have to say that when I started dating after my divorce, and I would listen to men on the phone for hours. Like, I don't spend more than 15 minutes now. But it was, a guy would start telling me, and also bashing his ex, and she took all my money. And there was a part of me that was like, wow, this is an interesting story. And the other part it was like, how do I get off the phone?
It's been 2.5 hours. How do I get off the phone?
I really could not, and I couldn't end coaching. I think I've spoken about this before.
Yeah, I love this.
Also, I couldn't end a coaching session. I felt it was rude to stop. So that's also a skill. It's like I felt it was rude to look at the clock. Now I say, well, with our last few minutes, how would you like to wrap this up? Or, just there is a way to end a conversation. So this is something that we can all learn. But Teresa and I both have struggled with this, and we're both much, much better at it. And I think the real number one reason we struggle with our no's is we don't know our yeses.
Bingo.
Who here knows everything that you want to say yes to? I mean, most of us have never been taught what's important to us. Nobody ever really asked us. Nobody cared when we were growing up. Most of us, maybe we were in relationships where we tried to speak our yeses, what was important, our standards, and somebody knocked us down. So we cannot speak our no's until we not only name our yeses, our standards, but we own them. We know this is a line in the sand. And my whole life I was like, yeah, that line was movable. Yeah, we could just move it a little bit more because I want to make that person happy. So we got to know where that line is in the sand. That's our yeses.
I love that. There's a great meme. You can't make everyone happy. You're not pizza.
I love it.
I have a meme on my Facebook that says, if you were supposed to make everyone happy, you'd give them a pony. I don't have ponies for people. So why do we feel guilty or mean or selfish? Does anyone else feel this? Do you feel badly? Do you feel guilty, mean, or selfish when you have to set a boundary? Well, one of the main reasons is that we don't want to be that guy or that person. You don't want to be the complainer or the blamer, because we've heard so many of our friends, colleagues, family complain about other people, and we don't want to be those people. We want to be the cool girl. I remember having a client who never wanted to set a boundary with a boyfriend because she figured it would upset him. She was vegetarian, And she didn't even want to tell him she was vegetarian because she was afraid that that would upset him. Right? I mean, you get this if you're listening to this. Like, if you're vegetarian, you're just vegetarian. But she literally would go to restaurants and like pick around the meat. And then when she started
Oh my
setting her
God.
I know, when she started setting boundaries, he actually loved it. He really respected. In fact, he started getting vegetarian cookbooks. He started reading up on vegetarianism. He started like toying with it, but it became something because she set, and I think you said it earlier, like the specifics that she liked. It became a part of like, that's who she is. And so he wanted to know more.
And the truth is, here's a little secret, that a good guy wants to make a woman happy. He wants that owner's manual, which actually you're gonna do in the boundaries course, is to have your operating manual. How do you operate best? Imagine if we all could just know that about each other. You know, if I
Mm.
knew that you ate this food, and if I knew that you needed this amount of sleep, or when my son comes home from work, he needs to go to his room for at least an hour to decompress, we'd all be happier. But we're so afraid to set those boundaries. And there was such a great example in my Facebook group today. This, what you just shared, Teresa, reminded me. One of my monitors is engaged, and back in December, she had given her now fiance a picture of a ring that she liked because he had asked her. And he just proposed to her a couple weeks ago, and she didn't really love her ring. She
Mm.
was like, I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I don't really love it. She was so afraid to tell him. And in her Instagram feed, she kept seeing this ring, and it kept coming up more and more. And she was like, oh, God, I love this ring. And finally, she got the courage to tell him. And she said, I don't want you to be upset with me because you already gave me this beautiful ring. And he said, are you kidding? I would have been upset if you didn't tell me. Let's go get that ring. And they
Love
did. And
that
it's
guy.
beautiful.
Love, and she gets what she wants.
Yes. Yes. We all can have what we want when we're with the right people and we know how to speak up.
And there's no
Love it.
drama. Huh.
No drama. Okay, so let's talk about drama.
I love it.
We're often afraid to create drama by saying no. And the truth is, we create more drama when we don't speak up. I have a great example
I
from
think
my
you need to
daughter.
repeat that. That was so insightful. Say it again. We create what?
We create more drama when we don't set a boundary and speak up. We keep everything to ourselves, and we're really not being truthful. So my daughter was in an apartment, and she pulled out of her lease, but she's still paying rent. And she was trying to be the cool girl because she felt bad that she left the apartment, but she continued to pay. So she was keeping up her end of the bargain. And they never really looked for another roommate. And she kept being the cool girl, being the cool girl. And she's also paying utilities, and she's not even drinking the water or using the lights, but she's paying. And everything blew up last week. And she was like, Mom, I was trying to be so cool because I didn't want any drama. And I'm like, you didn't speak your truth. You didn't tell them how you really felt about the fact that they weren't looking for a roommate and they were just yanking you
Canceling
around.
they were just taking your checks.
Yeah. So, and I've been trying to encourage her to speak up. And she's much, much better. All my kids are great with boundaries now.
Of course. Have you met their mom? She's like a boundaries ninja. So the last reason that we have outlined why we feel guilty, mean, and selfish is that it's our I'm going to keep trying that. Coping mechanism. So two words together is copinism. It's our copinism against being left out. So I've said it earlier, we have a need for connection on the hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, connection is very important. And it can trigger our fear of abandonment. I had a car crash about 5 years ago, ended up with a brain injury and started getting migraines. And I felt awful that I had to keep canceling on people. We would set a get together, we would set an event, and I, at the last minute, and here's what I finally ended up doing. I finally ended up saying, I will absolutely make plans with you and I would love to see you, but I reserve the right, if my body is stopping me at the last minute, to say it's not going to work for me. Does that work for you? And if I had friends that said, no, I'd really rather do it at a time where I know you can be there, I'm okay with that. But I needed to say it for myself because I hated canceling, but I had a migraine literally every other day. off and on. So I didn't know if I was able to do something, but I didn't want to completely cut people out of my life or get abandoned. So I had to make that agreement. I had to set that boundary up.
It's such an important thing to know your limitations. I have a client who gets migraines and sometimes she'll cancel the morning of. And I have a policy that if you cancel the last minute, you pay for the session. But I don't have that policy for her when she cancels with an emergency because she can't help it. That's something that happens and I roll with it because she's an amazing client. She's been with me for a long time and she has learned to set boundaries. She's set boundaries mostly at work. So let's talk about another really big problem with saying no is we have an auto yes. The auto yes is somebody asks you to do something and you go, sure. And
Yes.
then a second later you go, why did I just say that? So let us know in the chat room and please do start posting more. We really want to hear from you. We're not kidding. Have you ever had that auto yes where it just comes out of your mouth like, I just volunteered for that. I just said I'd do somebody a favor. What happened? So while we're waiting for some responses, I had a story a couple of years ago. I had a friend who it seemed that our relationship has shifted, and every time she'd call me, it seemed to be for a favor. And I was starting to feel a little bit resentful. So I didn't want to keep doing favors for her because I have boundaries. And she asked me for a favor that I could do. And it was to go with her to get a picture framed. And I'm an artist. I actually had made the picture that she wanted framed. And I said, of course, I can help you find a nice frame. So we get the frame, we're waiting in the checkout. And she says, can you take this frame home and frame this picture for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. I felt really icky inside. Like I felt like I wanted to say no, but I didn't know how. And I immediately regretted it. It was what I called the second yes. And so the first yes I was okay with. It was the second yes that tipped the scale right over the edge. And I ended up having to cancel, but doing it really awkwardly, and it was not a pretty picture. But I knew that if I actually followed through and framed that for her, I would be resentful, and I don't want to be. So let us know if you have any. We have one from Betty. Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
We don't take enough time to think first. Yes, ma'am. We create more drama when we don't speak up or
Lying by omission.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, that pause, and that is what we need to do. We need to stop before we have that auto yes. And we have a lot of other tools and we're going to share some scripts in a few minutes about what to do when somebody asks you for a favor or a request that feels like, are you freaking kidding me?
Don't want to. Another example from a personal example, and this is why tools are so, I can't even tell you, they're so important. I have been a successful business owner since the late 90s, and there weren't very many female business owners at that time. And I would often get the request to meet for coffee or lunch from someone who wanted to start their own business, or a woman who I worked with a lot of women entrepreneurs and helped them think about their business, create successful systems, etc. But it felt like there was this pressure to say yes whenever anyone asked. And the first question would be like, do I have time and can I fit it in my schedule? And I started realizing that I didn't even think, do I want to? Yes, someone wants to meet with me and talk about their business venture, but do I want to? And do I have the time for it? So I started creating almost like a plan, and I call it virtual coffee. So I would start meeting people online for coffee when that became available, instead of meeting for coffee, driving, having the coffee, an hour you'll never get back, and then driving back home. I started doing virtual coffees, and I even do those with boundaries. I'll usually ask the person, well, what are you looking for? Maybe I can refer you some resources before we even meet. And I want people to feel served, But dear God, there's only 24 hours in each day, and I need some of them for myself.
I love that. I also used to get asked for coffees all the time, or people who would connect with me
Mm.
on social media and say, "Hey, do you have time for a quick call?" And I'd always say, "What's this about?" Um,
Sally says, I do the auto yes too. Here's to the auto yes. Oh, I know I'm trying to please. Yes, ma'am.
yeah, it's just what's this about? Because I'm busy, and recently I had a woman who I helped with a chapter in her book on dating after 50, and I gave her some time on the phone. Then she asked me for some client names. I gave her those. Then she came back and asked me some more stuff. So
The
this
second,
was
the
this was
third
the third
ask.
request, and at that point, I said, and she goes, "Do you have time to get on the phone, or blah blah, or maybe I can email you some questions?" And I said, "Here's a link to a page on my website that's going to answer all your questions." And she thanked me so much for doing
Mm,
that. And the more we can prepare, and so that's preparing for the outcome that we know happens over and over and over again. We have a comment from Sally.
oh, I just read that.
Yes, I do the auto. Yes, I know I'm trying to please. Oh, you did read it?
I did.
Oh,
Sally got auto yes twice. Go, Sally.
yeah, Sally. So yeah, we have to watch that auto yes. So what do? We have to establish our real yeses so
Yes.
we can say no without guilt. And Teresa, you have a great example of that.
One of the most valuable resources we have, to me, the most valuable resource we have is our time and our energy. Those are those two things. And so sometimes a time value would be not picking up your phone, not always checking it, putting it off to the side, turning it off at night, having certain times when you're available and accessible, and then having down times, like planned, purposeful down times. The other thing is always checking social media. After social media came out, there in the DSM-5, which is how they diagnose mental stuff, mental illness and disorders. There came up one called internet disorder, and it's people who are addicted to the internet. So they will
Mm.
stay on, or they will take hundreds of pictures of themselves just to post one selfie. And we can use that as a distraction from our own lives. And I also meet a lot of clients who feel like they need to be available and accessible to clients 24/7. Well, I always ask them, which hours of the day are left for you? Which ones matter to you? So time really helps you, a boundary that helps you protect your energy too. Oh, did you see these from Wendy too?
I saw one. You want to read it?
Sure. Thank you, Wendy. You are both so inspiring, and your boundary course is solid gold. Bless your heart. The awareness and accountability alone are incredible. Plus, the support and the structure are life changing. And that's
Thank
true, right?
you.
We don't get that kind of support. I always laugh when we set a boundary with someone else. It's not like they go, yes, you did that. We are typically faced with somebody who wants something from us, and we say no. Well, nobody likes to be told no, but the other person, unless you're, kind of wacky like Sandy and I'll always celebrate a boundary when somebody sets it, but that's very unusual. So being in a group, being on a call like this, being in our course, you get celebrated.
Yay. And Wendy, thank you so much. And we're going to leave a little time at the end. Wendy, hopefully you can come live and talk a little bit about your experience in the course. And we
Oh,
have
that would be
Nahama
awesome.
here who was in the last course. So you're going to hear from some participants about the real life experience that they had. So thank you so much. Um, yeah, and I will say that the more boundaries I set, the more respect I got. In
Mm,
as much as you think you're not going to get clapped for that, I have set boundaries with men around texting, and actually I'm going to talk about that right now.
oh,
Um, Facebook, Instagram friends, LinkedIn, to be or not to be. And we talk about this in the first module, where you start to really identify where the awareness of, like, am I picking up the phone too much? Am I
mm,
checking Facebook too much? Am I not having enough alone time? And Teresa's going to talk a little bit about those environmental ways that we don't set boundaries. So social media, if you are active in social media, you will get friend requests, and sometimes from somebody that you're dating. And I have a policy that I do not connect. I don't connect with people on social, that, especially if I haven't met them yet. And this was someone I hadn't met yet. And so I was talking to this guy. We had a nice connection, and he sends me a text that says, "Friended you on Facebook." And I was like, I am triggered. So, but he doesn't know my boundaries, so I have to get untriggered and tell him. So I said it very nicely. I said, "Thanks, but I keep social media separate from my dating life. It's one of my boundaries." Smiley face. "I hope you understand." And he immediately wrote back, "Totally understand." Very respectful.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So the other places where it's important to figure out your yeses so you can say no without guilt is the kind of environment you want, the kind of foods you want to eat, the restaurants you want to eat at, the times that you go to sleep, or the time that you, like I shut down, everybody who's ever in a course with me knows I try to shut down media at my time, mountain time, around 9 o'clock, and I'm typically in bed asleep by 10 o'clock. And that has been shown to be very healthy for us. And so that's what I do. How much alone time you need. And even here's a funny one. We are triggered, not triggered necessarily, but told we need to be an 8 to 5 society. Well, not all of us work that way. Not all of our energy systems are geared that way. Some of us are more, we get more done in the morning. Some of us are night owls. We get more done at night. But you have to learn what your yeses are in between that. If you need to take a nap in the middle of the day, if you work for yourself, it's easier. You need to take a nap so that you can work at night and that you can get work done in the morning. That's okay. And also your environment. How much cleanness, how much clutter can you tolerate? For those of us who grew up in homes with chaos, you might be very, very much of a neatnik, or you might tend to actually bring in clutter because that is a type of chaos and you're used to it. So in the course, we'll discuss all these different pieces of it, but it's important to understand, what do you want to say yes to in terms of those things?
Yeah. And I have a policy with clients. I was going to bring in another dating example, but I want to talk about a client example. And this was something it came with time. I found clients didn't pay me on time, so now I take only automatic payments through online, credit card. I have gotten very long emails from clients that are more like a session. And so this is all discussed in the first client intake meeting and in a contract. So they know what to expect from me and what I can expect from them. And so with those long emails, I let them know that if it's beyond a certain length, it becomes a session. And we'll either bring it to the next session, or they can pay for another session and an additional session. So it's very clear. There's no big surprises. Oh, Sandy said one thing, she meant another. I didn't know. This is totally a surprise. And I love working with people who are clear like that, who lay it on the line. And Teresa and I are both very clear about who we are and what you can expect from us.
Absolutely. And we're clear with each other. I know what supports Sally. I'm sorry, Sally. I know what supports Sandy, and I know how she likes to work best. And we get each other, and we want to respect that. And that matters. Sandy and I both worked with a woman who didn't have good boundaries. And then when she was upset, she would set up walls and make everyone wrong. And it was very, very confusing. It created a lot of chaos. Yeah. So another reason or way that we can establish our yeses is by knowing ourselves. And how do you know yourself? Well, you learn what's important to you. You learn what works for you and doesn't work for you. In our course, we actually outline your values. And I have to tell you, I've got clients who still go, wow, everything goes back to my values. I value freedom. And when I feel like my freedom is at stake, it drives me nuts. I get so upset and angry and triggered. So you learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And you get familiar with what it feels like to be comfortable. And you learn how to be okay being uncomfortable. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but boundaries help teach us. They're really there to help guide us. And if I can leave you with a little bit of kind of off the cuff wisdom, is those boundaries are there to help you show you something. We expand and we learn from where our boundaries are. It's kind of like our comfort zone. And then as you get more comfortable in a situation, you can expand your boundaries. You can grow. So boundaries are really like that safe space. But as we feel safer and more comfortable, we can use them to help us grow. And I think that's really important. That and understanding how you work and how you work best.
I love that. It was actually something I learned in art as an artist that we do best in structure. So if somebody
Mm.
said to you, you can have any canvas, any paint, anything, and go make a picture, that can overwhelm, right? But if everybody said, everybody got a shoebox and you had to create a diorama in the shoebox, everybody makes these amazingly creative things. Some are outside the shoebox, some are inside the shoebox, but they're all contained. And we really do well with containers. And this is what boundaries do for us.
And that's like kids. A lot of your parents, and you're an amazing parent. Sandy's been teaching her kids boundaries.
Thank
Kids
you.
flourish because they know,
Yes.
they are told. They don't have to keep guessing what makes them good, what makes them bad, what makes them right, what makes them wrong. Like that's not even a thing. It's like, here's a container. Here's a
Yes.
structure.
And actually, my kids all ended up moving in with me after my husband and I, my ex and I had joint shared custody because I had clear boundaries. My daughter, who gave me the hardest time, said to me, "It feels safer at your house."
Hmm?
He was giving them tons of anything they
Freedom and
wanted,
whatever you want.
freedom. But I was saying, I care enough about you to have a bedtime, to, follow up on the doctor's appointment, to make sure you do your homework.
To not
And
feed you
that
sugar
feels
for
safe.
breakfast.
Yes, that is safety. That is what we need. We need that kind of care.
Amen.
So who here is ready to say no and end the auto yes? Give us a sign.
Give us a holla.
Give us a holla in the chat room. Let us know. And while we're waiting for your answers, we will check back. But I want you to know that you don't owe anyone an immediate response.
Mm.
So when somebody asks something from you, of you, take a pause. If you can just stop automatically saying yes to things that you really don't want to do or you're not sure of, you are stopping the process and you're creating that space to breathe.
I love that breath. Sorry, I was just taking one actually.
Good. I'm glad.
Another piece to that is it will interrupt the adrenal response, the adrenaline response. I did a TEDx talk, a TED talk recently, and I talk a lot about the inner bully and also your adrenal response. You can look that up on TED.com under inner bully. But when you can create that breathing space, create that pause, and then have something to say. That's why we love scripts so much. I know that if you've watched any of our work, if you've been in a masterclass with us, or if you've done our course, we are script, 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 and script. Script, script, scrippy. Because your brain does not function in a creative manner when you are adrenalized. When you are in fight, flight, or freeze, it's very difficult to think creatively, or with math. I'll just throw that out there. So we give you a few scripts, and there were some scripts that are attached to this webinar when you were invited in. But here's another couple. Someone asks you something, you can say, "Wow, thanks. I gotta check my calendar and I'll get back to you on that." Or, "I need to sleep on it. I've got a 24-hour decision-making policy," which I freaking love because whoever takes 24 hours, we're supposed to have everything like this. But the problem is all of that distress is causing us problems. So taking 24 hours to make a choice or decision, or I need to check with my business partner, my spouse, my roommate. You need to check on something before you get back to someone. It'll give you that inherent pause. And another thing that I used to do a lot with my business when people wanted something from me, like, "Hey, can you go teach this class?" And, "Hey, can you do that?" I would say, "I need to check. We have a schedule in place, or we've got policies for this," because I needed to take that pause. And then it took the pressure and the tension off of me so I could get back to someone else.
Yeah, these are all so important. And throughout the course, we give you scripts for every situation. We will help you script situations that are unique to you. But just simple ones like, "I'm not comfortable with that. I am not comfortable with that. That doesn't work for me." Those are some of the ones you got in your little downloadable cheat sheet. So we have some final tips for you to just take home with you, and then we want to talk a little bit about the course and we want to hear from some of the course members. So one of the things to remember is to be kind to yourself and start setting simple but firm boundaries with a neutral tone, with graceful but neutral tone. So some of the ones that we just shared, the I'll get back to you. I need to think about that. Simple. Ouch. Simple. And be sure that if you have a lot of anger or you're really triggered, that you want to get it out. So either talk to a friend, talk to a coach or therapist, write it out, take some time to process before having the conversation. Another tip is to be simple and direct in your language. And remember that you don't need to convince anyone of anything.
Amen, sister.
Teresa, do you want to share a few?
I want to repeat that one. You don't have to convince anyone of anything. The minute you start convincing someone, you're kind of starting behind the line.
Yeah.
You also want to avoid being defensive or aggressive. And I think sometimes when we're trying to convince someone, we're very aggressive. We're trying to get our point of view across. And it's okay if someone else doesn't like what you decide. So if you set a boundary, or Betty shared so graciously about her sister that you wanted to go into therapy with your sister, and she didn't want that, you cannot control that. I think the fastest way to drive yourself nuts is by trying to control outcomes or other people. And we do it a lot. We want to control things. And it's okay if someone else doesn't like what you choose, what you decide. But learning how to be okay that is part of the boundaries practice.
Oh my God, yes. So as you can see, Teresa and I are not only passionate about this topic, we really do live, breathe, and eat it. When you wear that lens, you see the world through the lens of boundaries, it's all you see. I hear boundary breaches all day. I hear myself when I'm, not clear on my boundaries or clear on my communication. And it is everything. It changes everything. The clients that we've worked with who have set boundaries and keep the boundaries, follow through on the boundaries, they are living lives of peace of mind. And, there really isn't a lot out there. There are very few resources for you, which is why we did this. We put this course together 2 years ago. We completely revamped it, really made it into an 8-week course from a 4-week course. We added tons of new material, but we also went deeper into each part. And so we just want to give. We want to give, but with boundaries. And
Absolutely.
so, and you'll be getting all of this plus more. And so if you found any value in this at all and you want to go deeper, we really want to invite you to join us. So I'm going to put the link here, and we have a comment from Betty.
Yeah, Betty.
My sister's excuse du jour was, I never heard of sisters going to therapy together. Bottom line is fear. Yeah. A lot of people are afraid of therapy. They're afraid of change. But we all know, and you who all showed up today and whoever has come to everything else that we have done, you know the value of doing this work, that it really is life changing. And so
I want to say one last thing, if you're okay with that, Sandy.
Yes.
And we talk a little bit about safety, but I am a self-defense instructor, and what Sandy and I are teaching will literally save your life. And I'm not just talking about in relationships. If you are in a dangerous situation, boundaries, 75% of the time, using your voice, verbals, or physical boundary can actually help you stay safe. And I think that's important to realize. The stuff that we're teaching is life-changing in your life, but it's all about you and how you show up differently to your world, staying safe and sane and keeping yourself sacred.
Yeah. It really, like when you're living it, it's hard to convey it until you really are there. So somebody who's been there, we have 2 people on the line right now who were kind enough to volunteer to share some of what their takeaways were from doing this work with us the last time. So Wendy, are you able to unmute? I don't know if you're in a good place.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Wendy.
How are you? It's great to be here.
Good. Yeah. So tell us like where you were when you joined and what some of the takeaways were.
Totally different place. I was frantic at the time. My daughter said, "Mom, you don't have any boundaries." And I said, "What are you talking about?" I had no idea. Unfortunately, you just started this course, and I was in a safe space with you. It was a really small group, and you went over it in a very structured way. And I really started to understand what they were talking about because, like many people in my generation, we didn't grow up with boundaries, and we had to learn them. And so I've learned them, and it's completely changed my life. I actually am much more aware. I think, I pause, and I set limits, and I'm able to be more assertive. I know the difference between wants, needs, and preferences, which is something that I didn't know
Wow.
Yeah.
years ago. What's the difference between a boundary and a preference? And so it's great. And so now it just has become second nature. And I'm actually getting contracts when I go to jobs, and everything is very much more structured and defined, and there's no gray area. So my needs are getting met in a way that they were not being met before. So
Yay.
very, thank you. It's just very empowering and powerful. And what I thought was disastrous turned out to be very wonderful and loving. And I didn't see it as a loving gesture, but it really was at the time. And that's something that I really want to emphasize, that it is a very loving and respectful gesture to do for yourself and for others, to set boundaries.
And Wendy, I just, the whole idea of you being able to have structure and feel that clarity and not the big drama, I want that for every person on the planet. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, there's no drama anymore. It's just like things are so much calmer. I just like deflect it, tune it out, change the station. It doesn't exist anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing that. And I want to also point out that you didn't resist your daughters, because a lot of times our kids know us better than we think they do. And it's very easy to get defensive when a child of ours says something to us. Like my kids used to say, "Mom, your tone of voice is terrible when you talk to us." And I'd be like so pissed off. "How dare you talk to me that way?" But when I stopped to pause and listen, like you did, your daughter was very wise, and she helped you to get to that next step in your life, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
you. That's so kind, and that's so sweet. Thank you both so much. And I really encourage everybody to sign up for this course with Sandy and Teresa. They are so loving and so wonderful, and you will be doing yourself a great service by signing up.
Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Much love to you both.
Love to
Take
you
care,
too.
Keep that structure, man. Oh,
Yes.
I love that.
I will.
So happy.
Thank you so much. And then we have Nechama here. So if you can unmute yourself. She also was a course member last time, and she's here to share her experience. Hey, Nechama.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Before I took the boundaries course, I had no idea what boundaries were. Taking the course has helped me in all areas of my life. And I want to give you a few examples. One is with my best friend, who often gave me unsolicited advice. And the old me would just shut down and not say anything. But I worked privately with Sandy besides taking the course, and I learned the language to use. And I was able to say, in the moment, when you give advice, I know that your intention is to help me. And can I tell you what would work better for me? And my friend actually heard me and was not insulted. And next time she asked me if I want advice or if I want to vent. And I was really pleased that she was, and I was heard.
Woo! We're celebrating boundaries tonight.
And in dating, it's helped me a lot. I learned to recognize red flags and say no when I see the red flags. And recently I went out with a man and said no to a second date, but he was a boundary pusher and begged me to go out just one more time. And in the past I would have weakened and doubted myself, and he continued to call and email me, and I found the courage to stick with my no, and I blocked him from my email, I blocked him from my calls. And that was the end.
Oh my gosh.
Boundaries.
Seriously though, how many women, if you have a, like, oh my gosh, what if he's the guy? What if he's the one and you don't block him? Or, I mean, blocking it or deleting him, but the guy didn't even listen to your first no. Oh,
That's right.
man.
That's right. He didn't listen to any of the no's, not any of them. And it felt so good to be empowered to believe in my own self-worth and set a firm boundary. And I was not able to do this before taking the course.
Yay.
I signed up again to take the next course because I still struggle with boundaries, and I often feel anxious when I think I'm hurting someone and setting a boundary. So I know I still need to work on it, and I signed up to take it again, and I'm looking forward. And thank you, Sandy and Teresa. I enjoyed it last time, and I'm looking forward to the next time.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Yay, Nakama.
She found her value. Oh my God. If we could give like little nuggets of this out to the people in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's open up for questions. We can open up if somebody else wants to unmute or comment or tell us what your takeaways are from the whole no webinar, because this is such a key part of boundary setting. What are you taking away? What are your questions? We're here. We're here for you for a little bit longer, not much longer, because we have boundaries.
It's 9:30 where Sandy is. So
It is. And I turn into a pumpkin. So yeah, tell us who would like to ask a question, make a comment.
Share.
Oh, Wendy, you're still unmuted. Did you want to say something else?
Oh no, I didn't know I was unmuted.
Okay, I'll mute you. That's okay.
And
All right.
if you've got anything, feel free to just join in. But hopefully you can understand that part of us feeling mean or guilty or selfish, saying no, man, it's everywhere. You're not alone. It is not just you. Every single one of us deals with boundaries in some way, shape, or form because they really are a part of who we are. One of my favorite ways to say what a boundary is it's our skin. Our skin is the boundary that holds us together. It's like that structure that Wendy was talking about. Our skin is the structure. And we need that structure. And so it's a part of us. It's a part of every animal kingdom. We also include bonuses in the course. And Sandy has kindly put the link in. But we include a course about anger. How to understand the feeling of anger and what it means and how it runs through our body and what it means in adrenaline.
And the modules are bite size. We've really broken them down into, a lot of them are 5, 6, 7 minutes long. You know, they're very short and you can listen to them or watch them. So we really respect how you learn. Some people like to look, some people like to hear. And there are worksheets that take you step by step along the way. So you start to know your yeses. You start to know the difference between a preference and a boundary, like Wendy said. And once you really know it, you own it. I make so few excuses today. I mean, if somebody is crossing a boundary, I feel it in my gut immediately. Right, Teresa? It's like you just know, you embody the whole boundary thing. And we want that for you guys.
And you stop getting, it's not that you don't get upset. It's not that you don't get triggered sometimes, but you stop getting into that big dramatic feeling of it. It's like, wow, that was upsetting to me. I wonder what's going on for me there. Oh, I get it. My value, I feel disrespected in that. Or one of my big values is creativity. Sandy's as well. She's an artist. But I like to be able to have creative solutions with people. And if I'm stuck in a little box, I don't like it. And if someone sticks me in a box or defines me, then it crosses my boundaries. So there's a lot that I learn every time we do this course. And there's a lot that we learn from each other. Back in the old days, we used to sit around fires, learn from the wise women. And this is a chance to do that. This is a chance for us to learn together and support each other.
So I hope that you learned a lot tonight and through all the other master classes and the 5-day challenge. And if you're willing to go deeper, this will be an intimate group that will be life-changing and invaluable, really. It keeps paying it forward. And the work we do, the work we've done, and we are growing every day, and we want to give all of our years of wisdom, give it to you, because it's a ripple effect. Whatever you learn will be rippling out into every single person you come in contact with. And I will tell you that even in my family, which was the hardest place for me to set boundaries, people have changed in relation to me. I didn't go in expecting that, but I have had my mother respect my boundary around unsolicited advice, around triangulation, all of the areas that I had trouble with. Even when she would put me on hold while she was talking to me, because she doesn't have that boundary to say, I can't answer everything at once. She doesn't have those time boundaries. So I have them, and I put them in place, and now she respects them. So this is possible for all of us, even in the most difficult relationships that we have. So we really encourage you to join us. And if not, we bless you, and we hope you have great lives.
It's all true. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So it is risk-free. We want people in the course who are enjoying it, who are getting something out of it, and who are participating.
Yes.
And so we do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if that's something that helps you.
Yep, and 2 payment plans. So there's something for everybody, because we really want more people in the course. We want to serve you all. All right. Well, thank you to your beautiful boundaries, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and goodbye.
Bye.